Hello there. I'll just give a couple of people time to just come on before I get started, because I'm going to stay on track today, because today is a bit of a special. I actually put a bit of a message out to say, is there anything that anyone actually particularly wants me to talk about on my gift to you, an hour live each night, or I try to, depending how tired I am or when I get space. And the kids have taken over my sofa bed in the living room, so I can't talk as loud and turn the lights on because I'll disturb the kids. My little sofa bed that I finally got into the house, which has been a bit of a nightmare, and the reason is because I have a physical disability. So first of all, morning Mark, and hello Maria, and thanks guys for being here. I know sometimes I do this anywhere between 10 and fucking 3 o'clock in the morning, but they get uploaded onto my YouTube. I will eventually have a powerful laptop where I can run them all at the same time and do it on Instagram and everything. So we're going to get bigger, harder, faster and stronger as a network of people who are not following anybody, who are leaders of their own life and take back their own heart, mind and soul. And these fucking labels that we are given, that are designed by a fucking Canadian paedophile, which we live under the Mental Health Act, by the way. Fact, truth. So I always say there's a tree, and I'm going to get myself on the camera, and with every tree starts with a seed, and with every seed grows a root, and with a root grows branches. And the problem with psychology and things like that is they just tamper around with the root, with the branches, right? And they like to sub-label everybody. So hence you get things like under the mental health, and I say the word under because you're under the mental health. Now, the reason that I'm probably very different to any other disability campaigner or activist, and one of the main reasons that I broke away from me and Callia Franklin and the Spartacus report that started in 2010, which is what I was originally part of, and the reason that I became, say, a rogue or whatever people wanted to call me, was that I believe that we are meant to sit central in our own personal centered planning. And my friend Neil and another lady put together a model with me, and many other people who all came together in Portsmouth to do like this whole, not so in Portsmouth, in Preston, and you can Google it. It was called Circles of Support. And we all said, as disabled people, that when the system, multi-agency, all these systems like social services, the doctors, everything, once they come into your life, the chair sort of takes control of your life. And I had a conversation with a police officer the other day, and he was a bit of a special force police officer, and I said, how would you feel having to share all of your personal information to somebody who's a complete and utter stranger to you? And he was very guarded about this. So I asked him very quick, fiery, hardy, personal questions, and he didn't know me from Adam. I literally just met this guy with his daughter at where I was down at my little office down at the beach, where I meet people who live in the hostels and things like that locally, and just co-symbioticness. And I sort of said, look, I'm having a co-symbiotic day, and I'd really like to ask you a question. What do you do for a career? And it took a while for him to tell me. Obviously, he said he was a policeman. I had to be careful because the guy down there had been smoking a bloody joint, mate, and I had my kids with me. And I was like, right, let's do this. Let's go here. Let's like, bang, let's go hard and fast with this police officer. And I had a lot of conversations with him about mental health and how people who are diagnosed as autism and how people are misunderstanding the difference between learning difficulties and just different diagnosis, and how everybody is just bundled together because you are, because it's like the branches of the tree, and how at the end of the day that we the people, and I've been pushing this for fucking like nearly 23 years in the services, because as you know, my degree is in psychology. I went like hard and fast through everything, and the reason that I did that is because literally from the age of 3, I've had psychological reports, SENs, fucking blah, 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 done on me. And I've never escaped and evaded this properly because I've never been fully under the control, per se, of my mother and my father, and then off to my husband, as the Bible says we should be as women. And I have always struggled because my challenges can't be seen. Well, you can look at my hands, for fuck's sake, and you see that my hands work slightly different to yours. So already, I mean, can you, for fuck's sake, if you can't see that, you're a fucking muppet. You know, that's a love heart, darling. There you go, the heart for your, shall I give you a whole heart? Hang on. I'll give you all a heart properly. I can do it properly. But it's all a bit portioned at the moment because I'm a bit left subject, and I'm actually sat a bit twisted, really. It's really bad to see. For those who don't know what my condition is, in fact, I've got misdiagnosis. I'm actually challenging them now to correctly diagnose me. And for my mother who is watching, she's misunderstanding, and many people are misunderstanding. It's not the sub-eviction notice, and I haven't got an eviction notice, and I'm not going to court. It's just pay your bill by the 5th of fucking October, or we take you to court, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I'm aware you can make blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm dealing with a whole network of people, like thousands of fucking people, who are in the middle of the shift over from DLA, Universal Credit, so DLA and PIP, and the 5 components that are now wrapped into universal credits. A lot of people are labelled, but I will tell you 100%, don't ever tell me depression is not real, even though there is a branch of a tree. Trauma is trauma, and trauma happens right into your DNA, your actual design from when you were knitted in the womb, hence when your chromosomes grow. And people, you can't tell somebody who's got 2 chromosomes missing. I don't know what 1 chromosome missing is. I must have a look. If Amber is there, I don't know what the diagnosis is for somebody who has 1 chromosome missing. I know 2 chromosomes is Down syndrome, 3 chromosomes is Matthew syndrome or something like that. And I know that because I spend a lot of time with one of all of those. I might actually spend a lot of time with 1 chromosome and just not realise. Many people have things like arthritis. Oh, fuck's sake, I could list you the whole list now. Here we go. Let's see if I can not miss anybody out, and let's go all the way through from, oh, this could be crazy. Like literally just drop in the box here, whatever diagnosis you've ever been given, and let's see how many diagnoses everybody in this network has ever been labelled, even if it's a nickname, bully, insult, just let it out right down in this box. So okay, let's start from the first thing I was ever called, liar and attention seeker. I lived with liar and attention seeker for, oh my goodness, from any child who tells you they have bellyache. My son's very clever, my son Elijah. He always says to me, my belly's a bit worried. And I recognise that when we're going out to the park and he wants to take things, he gets a social anxiety. Children who say they've got tummy ache, parents misunderstand anxiety. Straight away, children like that. I mean, that's another story. But let me just tell you a story for why I feel for worlds that still don't exist in the realms of the world that we perceive now, unless you maybe walk down the streets of London where you may see congenital twins where they're joined at the neck or the shoulder, and you might sort of be a little bit taken back that they walk so naturally down the streets and are so socially accepted by the community, and it's not shock and awe. I've lived my whole life with don't do that, or don't do that, because the moment I show people like my little spacky hands, really I don't have much power in my hands, it's like fucking ridiculous. I used to wear braces, but I found with the braces that when I took them off, that I had no power in my wrists at all, and I was a bit of a spacker. And one of the signs for children with EDS is when they sleep, they'll sleep with their hand sort of tucked out, or we'll put our hands in between our legs, or try to put our hands somewhere, because the shoulders like sublocks and dislocate, and it's quite difficult to like if you're carrying a shopping bag, and or the shopping bag's a bit heavy, and you've got literally, like, if I show you how my thumb works, it's the easiest way to show you. So if you imagine I'm carrying a shopping bag and my fingers are literally doing this, and all the ligaments that run all the way through my joints, all the way through my elbow. I mean, when my elbows pop, it's not fucking funny, and it's like hitting your fucking funny bone. But when my elbow like doodah thing goes, it goes, and sometimes I can't get it back. And down here in my ulnar bone, I've had it wired as well. Down here in my ulnar bone, it doesn't flip back over. So with us, it doesn't show under an X-ray. So we spend a lot of time going back and forth and back and forth. And a lot of children with my condition spend a lot of time under mental health, and I have myself. I have a massive challenges with going to A&E, not finding anything, fucking screaming in pain and being skipped off and injected and sent to fucking psych units. And all that time, I'd lived with this condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which was founded by Mr. Ehlers and Mr. Danlos, I can't remember their first names, and now I'm defined by their names. However, there is a genetic mutation. Can it be cured? They say no. Is it because they never advanced their research? I don't know. Is it because it's a genetic witchcraft? I don't know. I have never lived 100% fully personally responsible for my health, making sure that I maintain, well, I do try, but the problem with somebody like me is I burn out really quickly. If I don't get the correct support around me as a mother, it makes it very difficult for me to put myself first. And if I'm not right, then the house is not right and the kids are not right. And it can be very tiring for me as an individual to maintain, everything as a place, everything as a space, let alone challenged by living in a one-bedroom flat with 2 kids, which is like living in a caravan on a bumpy road and having to constantly tidy it up every day because it's all gone bump, 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 and that's a little bit difficult. And it looks like a fucking bomb set as I sit here now, and I've got a bike underneath seriously, this is my 1-year-old's bike. He flips this BMX around like fucking doodah, like craziness. Oh, seriously. So anyway, I've been asked to talk about the discrimination side of living with disability, and just for the record, for this interview, this chat, this whatever you want to call it, this ramble, this pancake, whatever the fuck it is, then I will accept the label disabled, because that's what the system defines any person who is asking for some form of reasonable adjustment for the way they behave or do things, or why they can't basically go to work and function. That's the predominantly main thing of it. Or within the education system or university or work, why somebody might have to do things slightly different, even if it's just rests and stuff, because they do have to encourage everybody to be able to be the best person they can be and serve where they want to be. Everybody has to make a living. Some people genuinely cannot function on a daily point where they can't wipe. Oh, sorry, my neck's just like literally gone plump. But some people genuinely, you could not ask some people born with, okay, coming from somebody who represents forced adoption exposed, I will tell you that I know a boy who's already been told by social services that he will not be able to have children, he will never be able to have a family. And he understands this because of the genetics of passing on his condition, and also the fact that he lives independently, sort of, with his mother sort of based around his family. And they agree that he definitely 100% couldn't actually be a father. So are there some learning difficulties that exist that if they had sexual relationship and fell pregnant and brought a baby into the world, that baby could not be raised by them because of any of these labels here. In order to find out and do that sort of investigation, it takes either a Section 17, a Section 47, or a couple of other sections, whatever, blah, 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 for social services to basically come in and assess your needs. It's a bit different with adult social services, but basically, you're asking for help, so you're basically saying, my life's so shit, I really struggle, this is the challenge I've got. Or you're born into the world and the doctor says, your baby is born with blah, blah, blah. It might be one arm, it might be heads together, it might be a congenital heart, it might be congenital dislocated hip, it might be Down syndrome, it could be Marfan syndrome, they might even detect Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it could have club foot, a cleft lip. I mean, our doctors are amazing, they can pick this stuff at scans, and people have a legal right in most of the countries of this world to terminate if they choose not to take on the responsibility of a disability. In the UK, and I don't know what it is in the rest of the world, we tend to have this entitlement mentality that if our child is born with a condition, it's the responsibility of people other than the people that brought the children into the world in the first place. There is a duty and a responsibility in this country that there are children born with alcohol fetal syndrome. This is a self-caused condition, and children are being born very handicapped and very disabled. I say the word handicapped because through the terms of disability, it's gone from spastics, and we were represented by Spastic Society, and during that time, people of many disabilities lived in institutions, and some of them were caged as nutters and mental health, and in fact they were injected to the point that all the side effects represented the same thing, and they were controlled in the same way. Have a look at the history of mental health and how people have come into society, and this was something that I was very privileged and quite humbled to watch, because my dad was a builder for Hilary Burton here in Headley Down, Stuck Road, and he used to do all the extension builds to all the properties that she built for Huntington House, which was for all the geriatrics and old people of those labels, and the other one, which was for children of sub-labels, and how she, as one person, had completely turned around how this was going to work and built homes for independent living and people living out more predominantly Downs, autism, and more different things. I mean, ADHD, all that blah, 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 whatever. There's a pill for everything. There's a sub-pill for everything. Some things are just, placebo effects. The fact is, trauma has occurred to our physical body, our spiritual body, 100% our spiritual connection, our heart, mind, soul. And within that, as we've grown, even it could be as much as the fact that the child was conceived during probably not a nice little situation, and therefore the swimming little things were, it can even be anxiety. So social services really do need to be aware that when they're dealing with pregnant mums, that they are actually putting anxiety on. I know of many miscarriages just because of the fear of losing a baby. I know many babies who have come into the world high anxiety and crying, and the parents have really struggled because of having social services presence in their lives. We do know of stillborns that didn't make it because of the level of stress put on mums, during social services being in their lives. And then the other stuff is, we're just different. And the fact is, when we go into a classroom, into school, they have to sort of divide us in, and it used to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then I think they changed it to, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is now. If anybody knows what it is now, none of my children in the education system, and they won't be, because they're not going to be merited or granted. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story today, which I said I was going to say on my live. I got initiated into the club over here today. They've been dealing with a over anxiety, social group, and fucking complex trauma, hidden condition, paperwork ridden, fucking social rah 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 sometimes. So anyway, I flicked out yesterday, and for anyone who knows me, I'm really, really anti restraining autistic children. I'm really anti anybody else touching my children in any way, shape or form. If you've got a problem with my children, you come to me, and it's as simple as that. And if I ever saw anybody lay a hand on my child, my reflexes, I might be quite flippant and quite weak, but my reflexes, I could probably scare you more by not even touching you physically. I can stand my ground in such a way you would probably physically move across that floor away from my child quite quickly anyway. It's quite an amazing thing to be able to do. Moms can do amazing things. I've seen moms do amazing things when they have to protect their children. But yeah, they have this thing called you have to go to the gate, and because it's a playground that's for over sixes, and it's ran, once a child goes in there inside, they can literally come down to the park and stuff down there. So obviously I have to obey their rules and regulations. Well, they've got a kid down there that we deal with. It's part of the mums that sit down there who are a bit younger, and she's preparing for going in, so she's having to listen and obey to what they're saying. And it's only sometimes like throwing sand, but sometimes kids can get a bit unruly, and the older ones, it's like to the gate. Well, anyway, it kicked off yesterday, and one of the staff was a little bit impatient to the point she had nearly tears, like losing her patience with his kids. And I didn't like the way all of a sudden she picked her up and took her to the gate. Well, I fucking flipped out, didn't I? I went, fuck's sake, seriously? Anyone touches my kid like that, I will fucking knock you out. Do you understand? So I went into the park quite gracefully today, and I sat down with one of the leaders, and I said, obviously it's going to be a bit tense between me and everybody in here today, but this is my rules. If you have any problems with my son, come and get me, and I will take him to the gate if this is going to be your rules. If not, then I don't come in this park. And he will not come in this park on his own if anybody is going to ever have to pick my son. 1, for EDS. 2, I'm labelled all Asperger's. My children are quite headstrong. And yeah, so today I got initiated to my child having to go to the gate for throwing sand. So Mum walked over to her child, said, Elijah, we're in the park at the moment. These are the rules of the park, and they would like to speak to you at the gate. So you've got 2 choices. You can walk over with me, or I will take you to the gate for you to find out whether we're going to leave the park or we're going to stay. So he picked up his bike and he walked over to the gate with me, stood, listened to what she said. And okay, went back into the park, and everyone was shocked because all their kids get taken like a fucking kick off and everything. And I just said, look, I gave him 2 choices, and he knew that was it. And they all just sort of went through. So I actually got to cut out all the stuff for the Halloween, but I kicked off that I don't celebrate pagan holidays, and I wrote a big banner, and I wrote, shine the light on Halloween. So anyway, guys, on Halloween, I'm going to set a new thing called Shine the Light on Halloween, and a few light things, and getting as many people to do firesides all the way around the coast, all the way around Great Britain on Halloween night. So hopefully you'll join us. We're going to be down, so yeah. But anyway, disability discrimination, and it's a big topic to talk about, really, because I mean, there shouldn't be any discrimination, because what a person lives with is personal to them anyway. And even if you turn to the services, it doesn't need to be all over crack, but we shouldn't be talking about it. I chose to put my head above the parapet and talk about it because I was sick and tired of people pushing me to work to their pace and do things at their pace, and I was burning out, and it made it very, very, very difficult for someone like me to be in this world where you have to check in at 9 o'clock. I mean, my bowels as an EDSer, and I'll be quite personal, I can tell you it's between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, or sometimes about 8 o'clock. It might be a bit different. All of a sudden, I can have diarrhea for up to an hour, and I have what's called I've had, oh God, seriously, I've had tubes down my throat, up my thing, because of all the laxity. All my internal organs are like it as well, hence why I'm a bit gruffy today, because of, and everything all the way through. So it can be really difficult for my family because we bleed internally. We can re-vomit and bring food back up quite quickly. I used to keep a cup in the car all the time because I'd be stuck in traffic going bleh, bleh, bleh. But the thing is, you sort of learn to accommodate and assimilate. And one of the main problems with living with any form of condition is how the people around you deal with it. And that's where I have a problem, and that's where most people have a problem. It's not how you choose to live with what you choose to have, what you have. It's sometimes it can come from getting in your own way, because maybe you've got your arm out amputated, or you've got no arms and you want to ask someone to take something off the shelf for you. Or maybe it's just because you're 5'2", and I'm 5'2" and can't always reach. So that makes me disabled when it comes to, getting something off the shelf. You can be disabled for any reason. I'm meeting a bunch of old guys that don't know how to use computers and stuff, and I've been taking the piss out of them, and I won't tell you the name of the page yet because I haven't finished it. So I'm putting up a new thing for all these old timers. So I've got really itchy legs. I need new shavers, and also it's part of my condition with my skin. So, and also things like me with different fabrics and things. So, at the end of the day, one of the main reasons that we need to do this is because the majority of people go through the education system. And when you're going into a classroom of, say, 24, 44, whatever it is that's in a class these days, 5, 10, 1, whatever, it's about learning. And we all learn differently anyway. So we all learn kinetics, semantic, what's all the other ones? There's lots of different styles of how we learn. We learn visually, auditorial, semantic, and how we take in information. But all of us as human beings, we are like driven computers. We can all only take in 7+ or minus pieces of information and chunk up to about 20 pieces of information at a time. We're not a massive big bookshelf and a storage library and a database. If you've ever seen what the computer sits on, it's like a fucking fucking machine. We don't have that. Our brains are amazing, but that's why a lot of people can't live in the present moment, because they're just so decluttered between future past. Some conditions are self-created. Diabetes, self-created. Obesity, self-created. Alcoholism, self-created. Drugs, self-created. Not learning. And when I say not learning, I mean like not actually taking the time to learn punctuation, learn to spell, learn. There's a difference between having some different way of having to learn that thing, and there's a difference between never trying to learn it in the first place and then being called dyslexic. There's a difference in our brain structures. There's a difference in how we're hardwired. There's a difference how we react or proact to something, and there's a difference in how we overcome or become victims to circumstances and cause trauma to our DNA. And everything comes back to our DNA. We get a new body every 7 years. I have seen people labelled with Down syndrome decide that they are not Down syndrome and just be known as their name. And I have seen them physically change over those 7 years that you wouldn't recognise the clinical facial features of somebody with Down syndrome. I've seen people with many different types of conditions and things like that completely change their DNA structure just by how they restructure and fuel their body. And I say fuel your body because it is fueling your body. That's what you're doing. It's like going to a car and getting petrol and putting fuel in it. And you wouldn't put diesel in a petrol car and petrol in a diesel car. And if anyone knows what happens when you do that, you know, you're going to have to go and buy a new car. And we don't get to buy a new body. So if we choose to drink coffee, hypocrite here right now, hold me accountable, drink coffee, stimulants, crack cocaine, pretty much based fucking shit, sugar, smoke. And you know, I'm a fucking chain smoker at the moment. Anxiety, I'm worried about getting fat. I think that's the problem. I think I hit it the other day. And of course, breastfeeding. So as soon as I come off breastfeeding, as soon as I stop smoking, as soon as I come off coffee, wow, I will balloon like fuck, mate, if I don't train. And that I do not want. And I've been everything from an 8 to an 18, mate. So, yeah, I'm quite stable in my weight right now, but I will have to say, naturally feeding and smoking and caffeine has a lot to do with that. And then ridiculous little fucking 45p tins of them, not Red Bull things, but yeah, very bad for you. Hence why children can't have them. When you're not looking after yourself, when you're not looking after your body, when you're not looking after your mental state, your physical state, and also the environment that you're in, or even choosing your right environment and allowing everybody to make choices for you, when you're not being responsible for your life, then you can't really complain about things going wrong in your life, and you just got to sort of like sort your shit out. But when you are actually born with something where there's either been some form of malpractice or hydrocephalus, things like that, or whether there's been some form called back round the neck, they've not done it properly, boom, 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 or someone's had an accident, they've become paralysed, or aeroplane crash, burnt, smithereens, still living, been out in war, limbs taken, cut off, blah, 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 or even born, formaldehyde, blah, 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 blah. When there's things like that, you have to really accept that they have to be supported to a greater depth than self-inflicted, I got depression, I'm this, I got that, I can't work, I want to switch my scooter. I'm not looking at you right now because there's a lot of people probably really fucking want to hate me right now because they know they're one of these people and know that ultimately they could be really helping one of these people and really making a difference in their lives rather than whinging and complaining about their life that really isn't actually that bad. And actually they could physically serve someone. And I'm not saying work, I'm saying serve someone, be of service to somebody. Graham is not physically handing me money or paying me in any way, shape or form. I just feel like what's going on is wrong, but I know actually the outcome based on how many videos are going on. I've been watching the Roddy Sutherland interview tonight, and I know that I can make money so I can support myself. But what people don't realise with somebody like me, I've always said, when you live with a condition like mine, where you have good days, bad days, and this is what the system finds very difficult, roller coastering, mental health, depression, bipolar, all these sub-trees, diagnosis for trauma, when you're dealing with this or you've been through something, even grief, parent dying, child being taken, trying to get your life back. My kid's trying to cut his blanket off. If you're going through this, there should be a rehabilitation time, but we don't have time to heal, especially mothers, fathers, parents, people who go to work. You can't just take time off. You can't just come out of your life. I might have to go take that off. Even bringing a child into the world, everybody gets up, goes to work, or is on a benefit. And in order to sit on a benefit, you have to sit under the word disabled. In order to do that, you have to prove your challenges. In order to do that, you have to have somebody sit in front of you and decide how your challenges work for you, and you've got to justify yourself, and it becomes very difficult, and you can become so self-persecuting all of the time as well, and project a lot on other people when you live with a disability. I really don't like this whole classification, but what I do find very difficult is even when people are trying to be positive for you, and you need to step back and take a break. It's very difficult when you've got to define the very static disability, and that's like somebody permanent, so say in a wheelchair, on permanent crutches. You know, what you've got to remember is all those aids are only aids that only exist as well. So if there was another function in another way, there would be another way of doing it. It's only because that's what's available. People with bad legs sit in a wheelchair. You know, there might be a better way. Sometimes people don't permanently use aids. They may find, like me, I should really put my braces on when I'm trying to clean the house, or physically, it's fine for someone like me to just say, look, I'm not willing to do this because there's stuff I'd like to do with my kids, but the time it takes me to do this and what it takes out of my body is worth paying somebody £10 an hour to come in and do that. You know, in the 20 quid a fucking day, people spend 20 quid a day on weed, do you know what I mean? So what, 10 in the morning, 10 in the evening, just for someone to straighten up my shit? And I always say, like, you know, at the end of the day, when you're living with something that's inconsistent, and that can be a relationship, that can be a teacher that's inconsistent, that could be anything that's inconsistent. And somebody like me doesn't work very well with inconsistencies. If I go somewhere and you have a rule with me, then I expect it to be pretty similar. If you're a bit dumped with me, different, then yeah. But then so I was just reading one of the comments at the time then, but what was I saying? Yeah, one of the main problems with inconsistent conditions is that you like the captain of your ship, but then all of a sudden the captain can't get up that morning, you're in the middle of the fucking ocean, mate, and you've still got to get on that day. So the captain's either got to get their fucking arse down and get everything going, but if the captain doesn't turn up, there has to be some form of autopilot in. But when you've got kids, it's really difficult because you've still got to keep everything going. And in our society at the moment, and why people are feeling so discriminated and persecuted, and not so much by their immediate support systems. And the problem is a lot of people don't have support systems, and that's because people don't talk about their challenges and where they're struggling. And we, the British people, don't have a therapy, help, counselling, therapist mentality. In fact, we're quite prudish to talking about our feelings and airy-fairy and problems and stuff, and we can explode, and that's why we've got quite an angry, explosive country right now. But it's okay to talk about things, it's okay to get things off our chest, and it's okay to have challenges and differences. What's not okay is to bully people who are already struggling. Oh. Yeah, but what's not okay is for people to question that, especially if someone has worked really hard to try to understand and really go there and really work out, and they've worked with doctors and professionals, and they have a diagnosis. We're quite lucky in our country with our NHS now that they've done so much research that you can be signposted quite quickly. They know the signs and symptoms of things like cervical cancer, prostate cancer, lymphatics, thyroids, all that. They can pick it up. Blood testing really quickly these days. Biopsies can be done very quickly. You can monitor your health in this country very, very quickly. And that's a good thing to be able to do. Get 5 minutes with your doctor, have an MOT. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like taking a car into a service station. If you don't, I mean, come on, seriously, do you think a car would really make it the length of our body if, I mean, actually, name one car that could exist and outweigh a person, and certainly name a car that couldn't do that, or would be able to do that if it didn't get serviced, MOT'd, have its oil changed, all the bits that come with it, change its tyres, all that stuff. It just wouldn't physically be possible, and our bodies are the same. You know, everything, how our nails grow, absolutely everything. So we have to take responsibility of why we choose to sit under the disabled label, because somebody who's blind doesn't even sign on and still works, where somebody who's blind will even get somebody to read the paperwork to them, where another person will do braille and self-teach. Somebody with arthritis will continue with their hobbies, where somebody will whinge. It is about mindset, it's about how you deal with it. But when it's other people doing it, and when people are challenging you and you're doing your best and you're trying to explain, this is where challenges start coming in. Say, like, people find it quite strange, my spacker knives, but somebody like me can't hold a knife that way, and I find it easier that way, so we make reasonable adjustments. But we have to ask for these reasonable adjustments when we're in society, when we're in school, when we're in work, and this is where the discrimination starts. And sometimes it's even as simple as the embarrassment that people go through in losing their lives and getting. I can remember the first day I went in a wheelchair, I was paranoid as fucking Woking shopping mall. I felt like everybody was just looking at me. I felt so vulnerable, like it was the most horriblest experience, but it was enough for me to go, whoa, I've got to find another way. And if we're not helping ourselves, then we have no right to ask others to be really helping us. And there is a fine line between, and I'm talking about disability in terms of asking government for funding and support for things you create in yourself and having a reliance on government. But I'm also talking about things like, sometimes people just can only play 15 minutes of netball, and they should be praised for that 15 minutes they can play and not criticised for the 45 minutes they didn't play. And that's when discrimination becomes a problem. Somebody at school may be an absolute talented artist and get an A for outstanding, merited oil painting of whatever, but somebody who just isn't into it might create the best version of what they could that time, but they're never going to be a masterpiece oil thing, and they get an E and a D and an F because what the teacher was in awe and petty of one over the other, but both were an example of their best. Then I don't like this. So somebody who may be, a basketball player, and somebody who plays basketball in a wheelchair all of a sudden has to be separated into a disabled sport. So I think it's more about encouraging people who struggle to be able to still overcome their challenges and do what they love. And it might be as simple as changing the way something's done. But I think where we've got to be really careful about it is when we're talking about people's values and beliefs. And that's not necessarily discrimination. That's people standing in their own true integrity, and maybe they don't necessarily want to be in a way, say, like alcohol. Some people can work with people who have alcohol issues and some people can't. Should that be? So it comes under mental health. Somebody may be completely homophobic and they, again, everybody has a right to their own opinions. Somebody might be left wing, all these different labels that come in, and it becomes hate crime, and that's different. Hate crime, disability discrimination. But where we've got a problem with it, and where we really need to talk about it in Parliament, and we really need to talk about it as people who have conditions, is within the family courts and within children's social services and children and adult social services. What's happening is we have a thing called threshold. So people who are under mental health, learning difficulties, disabilities are then being written up, and straight away they're below threshold. And rather than going, oh, bless you, let's have a chat and what can we do and blah, blah, blah. It's, oh, you can't look up and you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, wow, pom, 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 pom. Kids are gone, mums are in home, people being sectioned, pom, pom, pom. You're incompetent, fuck off, you prick. And that's not good. That is discrimination. We all who have been treated like that have discrimination cases, and we've got to get our shit together and really get this talked about, because this can't be happening. There are laws that protect people who are disabled, learning difficulties, to make sure they have equality, to make sure they live by the same standards of people who have the same rights, to make sure they have the same freedoms, the same rights to serve, the same rights to, live a full life, the same, rights to health, the same rights to all access services that everybody else has. And we are able to bridge these gaps, but they've created such a gap. And I said to this police officer, I said, what they've done is so dangerous. They're just literally pushing everybody off the cliff with these changeovers, taking people off the old system, put them on the new, and they're expecting everybody to be able to work to the same standard, being that they've been privately educated, where everybody else has been comprehensively educated. They were privately educated and taught things that will help them bridge this time, but the people in the comprehensives haven't been given them tools, like I say, the toolbox. And then you're dealing with people, you're throwing paperwork on them. Many people are dyslexic, many people can't deal with this through their learning styles. We don't have the correct systems in place individually. Even though they use our trust fund name on our birth certificate, they haven't actually provided you with the services that you're meant to have. Every single person has certain network around them. Everybody has a hairdresser, everybody has a dentist, everybody has a doctor, everybody has an optician. We have all these things available to us to make